All right, everybody, welcome into another Invest Well show. We're going to have a conversation about inflation. You've seen a lot of data coming out recently about what's happening, what's going on. Annual inflation rate slows to 2.9% and lowest since 2021. And everybody's like, wow, that's incredible. Or at least it's great for talking points. So we're going to take a few minutes on the show and unpack, what does that actually really mean, number one, to you, the consumer, and how, and probably more importantly, does it affect you daily and your investments? I think that's the question you're going to be asking in relation to investments. How does this affect you? What should you be doing or what should you be thinking about in relation to how you invest? I got to be honest with you, there's so much noise out there today in so many different capacities about what's happening in the economy, and it changes daily. And unfortunately, a lot of the metrics that they use now shift and move, so it can actually make it more rosy, the old rose-colored glasses, if you will, and make it sound better than it actually is sometimes. So when we think about the annual inflation rate slowing to 2.9%, what does that actually mean? Well, obviously inflation is slowing down, so they like that. The Fed likes that. They feel like some of the policy that they're implementing, which is raising interest rates, remember that? They feel like that's working to some degree because inflation is slowing down. But guys, we got to ask ourselves the question, slowing down in comparison to what? Like, how does that really affect you? What does that mean? And it's the lowest since 2021. Well, guess what happened in 2021? There was an administration change. You may have forgotten. There was an administration change that transitioned from the Trump administration to the Biden administration. And now here we are in a new administration, and inflation took off like crazy. Most people would agree that inflation, in a lot of ways, is caused by the government, by government policy, by government spending, by a variety of other metrics. Now, they can push it off to the reality of this is just a coincidence that these things happened. But when you put in policy to slow down intentionally the economy, when you put in policy to slow down drilling of oil and gas, which obviously flows through to people that are actually using oil and gas, truckers and things like that, it affects everything that happens. It's just like common sense. I was having a conversation with my kids. I was taking them to school this morning, and the conversation was about that there's a conversation on the table about minimum wage raising. Hey, minimum wage is going to go up. Good for you, new workers to the economy. You're going to make more money. And my oldest son, Cyrus, said, Dad, he's like, the reality of it is everybody knows that these companies are not going to sustain and absorb that additional cost. Isn't it surprising that a Big Mac at McDonald's is way more expensive today than it was years ago? Do you think that has anything to do with the reality that the cost of wages has actually gone up? Let me help you with the easy ones. It absolutely has to do with that, because these companies are not going to absorb that additional required cost that they have to put out. They're still going to make profit regardless. They also, another interesting fact is core CPI, not CPA, but core CPI, Consumer Price Index, actually does not, it's rated about 3.2% annual rate right now, but actually does not include food, and it doesn't include energy. Now, here's a big question for all of us. Is there anyone out there that doesn't ever eat and doesn't need energy? Dumb question. We all eat and we all need energy. So the reality of it is they're saying, hey, some of the most essential things in our daily life, like food and energy, which helps us go from place to place, cool our home, all these things, those factors of what we're actually paying are not actually included in the core CPI numbers. Why do they do that? Well, it's convenient. They can eliminate certain details and talking points, and it allows them to be able to tell the narrative of their story. All right, so let's transition to your investments and how this actually affects you and what you should do. A long time we've talked about, people have said, well, I want my money to be safe. I want it to be conservative. I want to be in a place where a lot of folks out there is like, I want to protect what I have. I got to tell you, those that move forward in life, those that increase their lifestyle, those that increase their standard of living are those that actually are willing to take some element of calculated risk. There's risk in everything that we do in life. And by the way, if you take your money, you just put it in the bank, or even you put it in CDs as an example, we call them certificates of depreciation. You put your money under your mattress at home, you are participating in what I call losing money safely. Why? Because you're not even keeping up with inflation. You have to start unpacking the buying power of money. I mean, just think about it this way. Think about $100 today, and think about how much $100 today would buy you. So I give you a $100 bill right now, a nice, fresh, brand new Benjamin. You get that $100 bill and you go out and you go on a shopping trip and you say, what could you buy with this $100 bill? Versus rewind the tape, some of you that are a little bit older listening to this, and go back 20 years and say, what could that $100 bill have bought you 20 years from now? We say, Mike, is it really that different? It is. I mean, think about it this. 20 years ago, gas was right around $1, sometimes less than $1 a gallon. I could have filled up my tank for my SUV for $30, $40, $50 a gallon, or $30, $40, $50 total. Now it costs me $120 to $140 to fill that same SUV up. That's significant, almost triple the cost. So when you look at your investments, you have to be mindful of the reality that if you just maintain the same course, you're just in the market and you're just ebbing and flowing up and down, but you're not really traditionally moving forward. Or you're in investments that are more, we'll call it safer in nature, but you're not really moving forward as far as your return. They're actually not as safe as you think they are because they're not keeping up with inflation. And because they don't keep up with inflation, you're literally in a situation where you are losing buying power in your daily life. That's the outflow. You literally lose buying power in your daily life. So what do you need to be doing? Well, I think the first thing that you got to do is you got to look for ways to reduce volatility in your overall investments. That's number one. Reduce volatility. Look for ways to reduce volatility in your overall investments. Volatility actually inhibits your ability to directionally grow in certain areas because you never know exactly what's going to happen. It's almost like living in an environment where you have, unfortunately, God forbid, a lot of trauma, let's say in your family. That creates volatility in the family, and that creates instability. That creates the ability or the mindset to not know exactly where we are and not have strong footing. So when you look at your investments, if you look for ways to reduce volatility, that will help you have more directional focused, strong footing. That will be ultimately a good outcome, hopefully better for you long term. Number two, you need to be thinking about looking at investments that will benefit from demand and where demand is going. If you've heard me before, you've heard me talk about the idea that I talk about generational shift, demographic shift, things moving back and forth, people moving different areas, people moving to different locations. When those types of things happen, there's opportunity, not only with housing, but where people buy, where people spend, what they do, and you want to be a part of participating in that along the way. It's so crucial. The other thing that you got to look at is what are the length of times of the investments that you're in? A lot of times advisors and firms in Wall Street for years would tell you that, hey, if you invest a little bit of money every month, over months, a dollar cost average, all of a sudden in 10 or 15 or 20 years through the compound effect, great book, by the way, by Darren Hardy, you're going to be in a place where your investments are going to grow and you're going to have the ability to have X amount of wealth. Well, if you just go back and look at some of the ETFs, mutual funds, even stock positions that were there, some of them really, really rocketed, but some of them did not. So pay attention to how long it actually takes you to get a reasonable rate of return. Remember, the goal is not to be in a place where you're just okay with making 4 or 5 or 6% a year. You need to be thinking about how can I make double-digit returns on my money annually over time, which gives me the ability to have more of a calculated perspective of where I'm going in the future. Now, I'm going to tell you, you might be saying, you know what, Mike, is that really possible, getting a double-digit return on your money over time? And I got to tell you that it is. In fact, you can have elements of opportunity there, especially and in addition to by reducing volatility when you start to look at things that are off market. So the key to this show is inflation will absolutely affect your investments, no doubt, because it affects your buying power. You have to think differently. You can't just say, well, I've always done things this way, so I'm just going to keep doing them that way and hope it all works out. Think about the buying power, the purchasing power of your wealth, and what are you doing to take advantage of key investment structures and opportunities that will maximize your ability to grow, minimize your volatility, and give you directional focus along the way with some type of slated time frame that you feel good about. Hope that's beneficial. Hope that helps you think differently around your investments. Share this show with someone who needs to hear it. And if you just heard a little clip, go to investwellshow.com or download it on your favorite podcast app or YouTube and make sure that you subscribe to stay tuned in. As always, if you got investment questions and you got millions of dollars or more, reach out to the sponsors of the show. You see it right here, Wall Private Wealth. Simple way to find them is leanonthewall.com. Be blessed. Talk soon.